Formula E made some big announcements yesterday from the virtual press conference. They sort of have changed the format. Obviously, we discussed this on Monday, if they needed to change the format, and they have done it slightly. So, boys, what I want to talk to you about is the elimination process. Now, drivers were eliminated on the end of lap 1 last week in Monaco. This week, they're going to be eliminated on the end of lap 2, which was something, actually, Jack, that I remember me and you discussing. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's the correct thing to do. The drivers getting eliminated that early in the race. I mean, they've been prepping for the entire week, and then they do 50 seconds of racing, and then that was it. Obviously, this week they're going to do 2 minutes because Hong Kong is a little bit of a longer lap. But I still think that it's not as long as it should have been. I think that they should have elongated the race a bit more. To mean that the elimination format came in maybe 6-7 minutes, so we still get 6-7 minutes of all 24 cars. It's a step in the right direction, and they've done and the things that they've picked up on quite a lot of the things that we discussed in the show. So I'd like to personally thank Formula E for listening to the FEZ show.
No, definitely. Ed, though, the other change that they made to the format is on the last lap now. So obviously the elimination lap starts a lap later on lap 2, but instead of having 10 drivers fight for the final lap of the race, we've got 12. So they've actually upped it. So, less drivers in effect getting eliminated, but then more drivers fighting for the final few laps.
Yeah, I suppose from that point of view, it's slightly better to have more drivers in at the end, and it puts a bit more focus on the guys about having them be the guy in last be eliminated on lap 2. I think is a nicer sort of gesture than just immediately taking them out, like you guys say. But in terms of actually for the audience watching, it just means the guy in last gets to survive another lap, really. But still, I think it's all about tweaking that format to make it work. The thing that I'm excited, and you're probably going to move on to this soon, Jack, I'm not sure if it was next or maybe later in the show, it was about the damage being upped from 0 in that test race to about
25.
80. Oh, it was 25, sorry. It didn't seem like there was any damage at all visibly, but they've upped it to about 80%. And I'm excited to see that, especially interesting because the last time Formula E went to Hong Kong, the race ended with Sam Bird running into the back of Andre Lotter, as you'll probably remember, and giving Andre Lotter a puncture. And there was this big debate about whether the Formula E car, Gen 2 cars particularly, whether they encourage that kind of contact too much. And now we see this sort of happening in the sim racing world too, with them having to up the damage. So I hope that means, especially in the Formula E drivers race, I think the sim racers are slightly better behaved, in my opinion. The Formula E drivers will be less inclined to T-bone into each other if they're trying to make sure they don't get eliminated.
So actually, before I talk about that, I just want to throw in one thing, which I think is really interesting. Formula E, as you two will remember, did Fanboost for the Vegas E race, and they haven't used Fanboost. Now, if you don't remember the story, I'll quickly fill you in. Ollie Pakala won the Fanboost, and basically his Fanboost stayed on for the whole race, and he finished in third, but then was penalised, probably lost about 100 grand in dollars of worth of money, probably then picked up like 25 or 50.
He finished first on the road and was demoted to third, you mean?
No, I think he finished third overall. He did not win. Bruno Huis won.
He won on the road because he was ahead of Huis, I remember. And then they demoted him after. You can look at it.
Sure Huis won.
Yeah, because I remember Pakala finished third in the end.
On the road.
Huis won outright. Pakala won, then got the penalty.
That was it, yeah.
So
that's what I'm
did
saying.
Win. Okay, fine.
On the road, but yeah.
Okay, so there you go.
He had a big advantage, like you said.
So 200 grand, basically, he lost through no fault of his own because the £1 million prize pot was shared. So the thing is, you can't simulate Fanboost in R-Factor 2, technically. You can't just put a button and that gives you extra power. It's not encoded into the game. But you could have maybe told the drivers, rather than racing at 250 kilowatts an hour, which they are, you could get them to race at attack mode at 235 or 200 and make it properly realistic and run at 200. And then they could have done a fan boost, technically, and they could have told a driver, okay, if you win the fan boost, you can go for 250 for one lap compared to the others who are running at either 235 or at 200. I just want to get your thoughts on that. So they haven't they haven't used Fanboost. This is like the first event they're not actually using Fanboost, and they could technically use it if they do it in that way. You know, having someone do it for 250 for a lap, and then that's it. That's your Fanboost, Jack.
Well, yeah, I am not a I'm not a technological master, so I don't know how it would work, or or just how just in general. But no, I think because Fanboost is one of the whole ethoses of Formula E. I think that it would make sense for them to involve Fanboost, but yeah, it depends on how they implement that, and also they should have really done it they should have really tried it for the test race, because the thing is they can't really implement it now, because if something goes wrong again, everyone's going to be up in arms, because we saw what happened in Vegas. And yeah, I think that what they've gone for there is the old saying, "What happened in Vegas stayed in Vegas."
Well, I have two things to say about what you say. First of all, with Vegas, I think the context is important, because I've talked to some of the CloudSport modders who made the mod for that, and they were basically told that they had to build the Vegas track from scratch in 4 weeks, and it's a fantasy track. Obviously, there's no real world equivalent that they're modelling it off of. And so they were forced to do it in 4 weeks. They told Formula E that it was like too steep a deadline, but Formula E wouldn't budge, of course, because they'd locked in all the dates and everything. So they had to sort of rush to get it out. And that's sort of when you make coding errors where Fanboost lasts, instead of for like 5 seconds, lasts 5 laps or 5 minutes or whatever it was in the end. Ollie Packer, unfortunately. And I believe he wasn't even the only driver. The other drivers that had Fanboost were like eliminated earlier on, and so it didn't take as much advantage out of it. But the other thing was about what you suggested, Jack, about telling certain drivers, okay, you can use Fanboost over like, you know, TeamSpeak or the team radio or whatever software they use in the chat with each other. To me, that feels like a system that could be easily abused by drivers. Like if it's just down to, oh, there's more power in the car, you can use it now. I wonder if like there are people who won't get the memo. I just wonder how you enforce that, because I'm not sure you can really put like a speed, like a kilowatt limit on certain drivers, but not others. I don't know.
Well, it's just from my experience playing R-Factor 2, it came to me and I thought it's interesting that Formula E haven't gone down that route of Fanboost. I just thought that was interesting. As we said, it's one of their main ethoses, and they decided, you know what, we're not going to use it for this E-race, and they made it such a big point back in Vegas that, you know, we're going to use Fanboost for the sim race. It's like amazing, but they haven't used it this time. So maybe they just learned their lesson. But I was just thinking, you know, I don't know.
Bad PR, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if. Well, they'd say any PR is good PR technically, but what I was mentioning was I don't know if they can monitor or see, you know, these stewards, because they do have stewards. So I don't know if they can see. That's my question. I don't know how well it's encoded into R-Factor 2. So maybe it's just not possible, because if you were to do that, then you can just have everyone running at 250, which is what everyone's doing now. But if you tell them to run at 200 and someone just goes, you know what, I'm just going to run at 235 because no one can actually tell I'm running at attack mode, or 250, and then win the race while everyone else is so slow, and this person won but he's like, yeah, secretly I cheated, but which you could get, but I don't know how it's encoded.